Hi everyone, welcome to another video. In this video we are deconstructing avant-garde music. Why the hate? This is my research vlog. Have you ever wondered why some people can't stand avant-garde music? You've probably never wondered this. The avant-garde is known for its experimental and boundary-pushing nature, often challenging traditional musical structures and conventions. However, despite its innovation and creativity, avant-garde music can evoke strong emotions. Distress. Or disdain. But why? So there are several reasons why they might not like it. It all boils down to personal preference, expectations, and cultural conditioning. Yeah. Okay, so first it can be perceived as inaccessible or difficult to understand. Its unconventional rhythms, dissonant harmonies, and abstract compositions may challenge listeners' expectations and require a certain level of musical sophistication to appreciate fully. It requires practice, basically. It's the same with anything. It takes practice to hear the nuances in it. As an example, let's listen to John Cage's 4 minutes 33. It's quite a well-known piece in avant-garde music, avant-garde with a big capital A. This composition consists of 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, challenging the listeners to redefine their understanding of music and sound. So obviously it's not silent. And John Cage wrote in his lectures on silence, when he went into a vacuum, he heard 2 sounds. It was his nervous system and his pulse, meaning that there's just no such thing as silence because you're alive, and even in a vacuum you'll hear yourself. And this piece forces you to hear the noise of the world. Each performance of it is going to sound different. Also, it's set up just like a classical concert. I think it starts when the pianist opens the lid. All the components of a piece of music are there, but the music is gone, and it forces you to look at the framework, the paragon of the work, everyone around it, and it kind of highlights an absurdity, I think, in that. So it says something about society and culture. It's avant-garde in that way because it's not art for art's sake. It requires the context to understand it. I guess you can't really approach it like a piece of music that you would enjoy. It's more like a thinking experience or a spiritual experience or something like that, where you grow and you think and you realise and you live and you realise we're all here in this world and we all do this thing, and silence doesn't really exist until you're dead, and then even then does it really, because who knows what happens after that point. Anyway, so moving on. Why else might people not like avant-garde music? Well, it's because it lacks familiar melodies and hooks and riffs and all this, and everything that's familiar about it is totally unfamiliar. We all know what pop music is, or classical music, or tonality. We all know what consonants is. We know what scales are. Avant-garde music sort of goes against that. It's unfamiliar, not predictable. And because of this unfamiliarity, it can elicit feelings of discomfort and unease, and perhaps uncanniness. If you take Freud's article, Heimlich, both canny and uncanny blend into one another at a certain point. He goes through it etymologically. So he starts off by saying that if it's homely, it's of the home, familiar, warm, comforting, but also of the home, hidden, secret, behind a door. So it's equally comforting and warm and familiar, but also unfamiliar. Etymologically, the definition changed from something that was familiar and warm and comforting to something that was unfamiliar and hidden from view. So it's this combination of the strange and the familiar that makes it uncanny. And it's the same with avant-garde music, I think. We reject it because it's unfamiliar ultimately, but it should sound familiar because it's music. So as an example, a musical example, let's take Ligeti's Atmospheres. Atmospheres, it employs dense clusters of sound and microtonal shifts, creating an eerie and otherworldly atmosphere that can be unsettling. Or we could take a Xenaki's piece. We could take one of my pieces. Here's something I wrote. I do kind of blur the boundaries. Let's look at my PhD actually. Why not? Because this one is really weird. It even unnerved people who like avant-garde music because it wasn't avant-garde enough. It wasn't dissonant enough. It was so closely to being one style of avant-garde music but also not quite another style, and it was sort of in between. So it was genuinely jarring. So the jarring here could be between, because I'm using 2 musical idioms, so I'm using avant-garde extended techniques, but I'm also looking at consonants, romantic gestures, things that sound like they should be classical. It sounds like it should be tonal, but it's not quite that. It's rejected within the avant-garde world because it's not quite avant-garde enough either. But in Freud's The Uncanny, the unfamiliar is not a straightforward binary opposition to the familiar, and in fact the two at first seemingly binary oppositions collapse into one another at a certain point, such that it can be argued that the unfamiliar is actually based on what is long familiar. I I would say that the avant-garde can be perceived as uncanny and unfamiliar, invoking feelings of strangeness and eeriness, because Sigmund Freud, the renowned psychoanalyst, discussed the concept of the uncanny in his essay The Uncanny, where he explores how the unfamiliar can provoke feelings of discomfort and unease. Well, I've already explained that. It's because the uncanny is that class of frightening which leads back to what is known of old and long familiar. Ultimately, I think we don't like the avant-garde or reject avant-garde music because we're just not familiar with it. And if something creeps you out so much, possibly because it's that element of familiarity in it. So this is me talking about avant-garde music. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, or maybe the next lecture, whichever comes out first. I will write this into a proper lecture for you to enjoy and learn from, and just if you have any feedback, let me know. And if you want me to add anything or write about something in particular, then let me know. See you next time.